Welcome into episode 355 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Scott McLaughlin. Bridget, we believe, is at a physical therapy appointment for the knee surgery she recently had, so she's without us right now. She may join if she gets the text we sent her, but in the meantime, Scott, it's just going to be you and I. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Yeah. Unfortunately, Friday morning, we have kind of a tight window here. So just trying to make it work with everyone's schedule, get what we can. This is recording without her is, I'm going to consider this my form of payback because she did unveil at the game last night her latest Scott's Pop monstrosity. She's handing them out. I don't know why. I don't think anyone really wanted them. So
She's handing them out like they hand out the towels before a playoff game.
yeah.
Everyone coming up the escalator. Okay, so Scott, obviously the Bruins win 6-4 over the Canadians. They get their first win of the season. Night and day, much better. Still some room for improvement as we're only at game 2 of 82. But overall, the intensity level, the execution, the compete was far superior than it was on opening night.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially offensively. Like the Bruins actually looked like a team with purpose and identity on offense. The way that they were forechecking, getting to the net, pucks and bodies to the net. Loved their early power plays. The way, first Hampus Lindholm is just firing away, scores, but has it called back as Brezzo makes a little bit of contact with the goalie, Caden Primo. And then the very next power play, 6 seconds in, Charlie McAvoy scores. Just, again, looking to shoot what you need from him. Really felt like that kind of, even though the Bruins then fell behind 2-1, like you felt like that set the tone and they just kept coming back. And, eventually build up a 5-2 lead, take their foot off the gas a little too much, something Jim Montgomery said after, and I'm sure we'll get into that as well. But yeah, I'll go into my opening shift here, which is about Elias Lindholm, who was one of the catalysts of the offense with a goal and 2 assists. Scores his first goal as a Bruin on a redirect in the slot, off a nice pass from Nikita Zadorov to find him. Kind of slap pass, like looked a little like a shot, but I think he was clearly aiming for Lindholm. And yeah, I thought Elias Lindholm was just involved all game. That top line with him, David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha looked much better. He's involved in setting up a power play goal. Works the puck down to Zacha for what ends up being Pasternak's goal. Really off a nice, really nice individual effort from Pavel Zacha to play keep away down low. But yeah, Lindholm in general, just, we talked about how that line, among a lot of other things, was too quiet Tuesday night against Florida. This was, I even heard like on some talk radio shows, like, geez, Elias Lindholm looks really quiet, this $7.75 million man. And it's like, all right, it's one game. He dealt with an injury in training camp. Let's relax. This was, a lot more like what I think you're going to see from Elias Lindholm going forward. I think he only had the one shot on net. So maybe if you're going to critique anything, like being more, he did pass up one really good shot, I noticed. But the way he was setting up line mates and the way he was just creating space for them and sort of the little moves he makes in the offensive zone to get himself space, to give his line mates an outlet. His support play, I thought, was just really good. So a very positive step for much of the team, but Elias Lindholm in particular.
Yeah, and for those looking for a comparison to how he plays, I know a dollar store Bergeron is thrown around there, and that's no disrespect to Elias Lindholm. Patrice Bergeron is one of the greatest Bruins of all time and one of the best players at his position over the last 2 decades before he retired. But when I watch Lindholm, I also see a little bit of Krejci too. It's almost like the way he plays is a blend of Bergeron's style and Krejci's style, but at the same time has his own twist where he's a little bit more proactively a pest. Like Bergeron would not shy away from contact at all. Neither would Krejci, but it looks like Lindholm isn't afraid to give a couple of, shoulders or cross checks when people aren't looking. So there's a bit of an edge to his game that he has as well. So I'm not saying when he's a combination of Krejci and Bergeron that he's like, at that caliber. Although his career high in points, I do believe surpassed whatever Krejci had in career high. So he's a good quality player, obviously. But you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Bergeron and Krejci are Bruins greats.
you know who else thinks he's a little bit of a mix of both is David Pastrnak, who said that during training camp when actually I think it was Bridget who asked him, like, does he remind you of either of those guys or centers you played with, and he basically said, like, yeah, there's a little bit of both. Like, there's the defensive game of Bergeron, again, not to the level of the greatest defensive center of all time, but like that kind of responsible play, and then the vision and playmaking.
Yeah, and even his skating style, when Krejci skated, he kind of had this like effortless look to him where he was getting from point A to point B, but it didn't look like his body was moving like super fast. Whereas when Bergeron was back checking or forward checking, just the way his strides were, he just used his body a little bit more to the naked eye. So he skates a little smooth, kind of like Krejci, but definitely, yeah. He has a lot to get used to. Obviously, new system, new teams, new line mates, new city, all that stuff. I think he has a newborn child, so there's personal things as well in one's life that they're getting accustomed to. So yeah, great sign. And Boston's leading scorer out the gate, two full games in, Scott. An entire 2 games, he's the leading scorer with 4 points. My opening shift is the other end of the spectrum, which is not the first line, but the fourth line. And obviously, down in Florida, the entire team wasn't great. You made note that the fourth line was the best of the worst during that game. But all training camp, we made comments. I'd made comments that I really, really enjoyed the fourth line combination of Beecher, Kastelik, and Cole Koepke. I've been saying Cole Koepke's name since training camp. Been knocking on that door, leading that tribe, and just that they have speed, tenacity, puck pursuit that really provides energy in that role as a fourth line, and they did so last night when the Bruins needed them to, and obviously that they combined for 6 points as a line. Koepke 2 goals and assist, Kastelik 2 goals, Beecher an assist, and it's also when they scored their goals, right? The 2 Kastelik goals in particular ties the game 2-2, the first one. And then the second goal, right when Montreal kind of claws their way back into the game, when the Bruins get sloppy in the third, I think it was less than a minute later, Kastelik is able to put the Bruins back up 2 goals. So it's not just that they scored, it's when they scored. And that's exactly what you need a fourth line to do, is provide energy for your team when they need it. And they did that and more last night.
Yeah, that second Catholic goal, yeah, it was 17 seconds after the Canadians cut it to 5-4. Yeah, like those are momentum goals, but momentum shifts from that line where you feel like Montreal is starting to build something, momentum's on their side. And then it was that line on both of those occasions that just came out, pinned them in, took pucks to the net, and got rewarded with a goal. Like, yeah, that they've been really good. With them on the ice, the Bruins have now outscored opponents 4-0 through 2 games. Like, that ratio obviously isn't going to continue, but the way they're playing, it just has all the makings of a really good, effective fourth line. Like you said, like they're doing it all. They're getting in, they're taking pucks to the net. I loved on Kastelik's first goal. Love seeing Johnny Beecher take that puck to the net, which he can do, but sometimes doesn't quite have that kind of aggression. So he's going to need it. And I think playing with those guys helps bring it out, because Kastelik definitely does. And I didn't know enough about Cole Koepke's game before this camp, but everything I've seen in camp, preseason, and now the regular season, he plays that way too. So Um, I don't know if he wasn't doing that in Tampa, or like, it's weird. It's like you watch him and you wonder why it didn't work. It's like, it seems like he would have been the perfect fourth liner in Tampa, right? Like,
Mhm.
playing like this. I mean, Tampa lacked depth last year. Like, presumably they could have used him, but maybe it took an off season, change of scenery, whatever, to kind of get a little more out of him. That happens. Like, sometimes it, for whatever reason, just doesn't click in one place and then it does in another.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's the good habits last night that you see that just really, I think, bleed up and down the lineup. When you see that as a teammate, it's gonna affect the rest of the team. You're gonna want to do the same thing. And yeah, Kaslick's first goal, you mentioned Kepke's net drive, and then on Kepke's goal, there was Beecher's net drive, and on Kaslick's second goal, it was Kepke winning a foot race and being willing to take that check and absorb that body contact um to chip the puck to space for Kaslick to go get it, and then Beach is going to the net there too. So yeah, just
Yeah, sorry. I mixed up the order there, but yes, that was how you put it was correctly. It was Beecher's drive was on the Kepke goal. I think I said Kastelik.
okay. Yes, but either way, they all had net drive, and
Yeah.
on all the goals, and yeah, the speed that between Beecher and Kepke is gonna present problems. And then Castlick might not be the fleetest of foot, but you've watched him in practice and camp up close, Scott. He has a powerful stride, right? When he crosses over, it's almost like you can feel the ice just digging in. So yeah, it's a really good combination, and we'll see what happens with the middle six. But Max Jones is gonna have to really carve out a role for himself if he wants to be a mainstay in the top 12, because Patra's not even in the lineup at the moment. And that fourth line, as we've talked about, just seems to be really clicking. And obviously, there's going to be injuries and slumps for people, and people will get opportunity. But as it stands right now, um, yeah, Max Jones to me is on the outside looking in. Now, that third line still leaves a lot to be desired. But again, there's the Matt Patra effect, right? So it's tough to really judge the middle six, or certainly that third line, till we see Patra there. So, but we can still talk about them. We can still talk about the middle six.
Right. Yeah. It's like, all right. So game one, you try Max Jones on that third line, and like I said, like, I like Max Jones as a player, and I'm excited to see like what he's gonna do this year. I just think that was a tough spot, like missing most of camp. You could even tell that the couple preseason games he got into, he was really still building back up. The second preseason game he played, which was the Bruins' final preseason game, he only played 11 minutes. So like, clearly there was still some limitations there, because I think if he was healthy, like, you would have thrown him out there for 15, 16, with a mostly AHL lineup, just to get him as many shifts and reps as possible. And they didn't. So like, that kind of told you something. So that was a tough spot for him. And then Riley Tufte, look, it's too bad we don't have number one Riley Tufte fan Bridget on, but
Right.
would like to hear what she thought of his game. I just don't think he's a third liner on a good team. He might be a fourth liner, but this, again, like, there's a reason he hasn't really stuck anywhere he's gone. Or stuck at the NHL level. He's been productive in the AHL, so it's like, well, he's at least kind of that quadruple A player, to like steal a baseball term. He's like at least a tweener, and now it's like, can he get his game to the next level and be an NHL regular? Even if he does, I don't think it's on a third line, ideally. Um, so again, they're trying to mix and match and figure things out. But yeah, of course, Pacha returning is like, that is the solution on that third line. Like, that's really what you're waiting for. However, like, put him in the middle, bump Frederick over to wing. That's a good third line, I think. So I thought going up to the second line now, Brad Marchand, I thought played really well. Like, he was very involved Thursday night. I think even though he didn't, I don't think he had a point, right? He wasn't involved in any of the goals. He did have an assist on the McAvoy goal. Yeah, he helped work that back after Lindholm on the faceoff.
Mhm.
But like that line didn't really produce at 5-on-5, but he was just involved all game. I thought it was bringing energy, and you could tell it was one of those games where he was like, "We're not going to be flat again. Like, like I'm going to do my part to make sure at whatever else happens tonight, we're not going to be flat. We're going to have energy." Um, so that was good to see. I thought he helped create some chances. Rest of that line, I still thought, left a little bit to be desired. Geeky had a tough play on, was it the second Canadians goal? Where, yeah, it looked like Caulfield was his guy and he just lost him in coverage, and Caulfield ends up alone on the doorstep. So still trying to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, when Potter comes back, like you're at least going to look at this lineup and be like, that's 12 forwards I know should be in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no doubt NHL caliber forwards. Whereas right now you're like, should a recovering Max Jones really be in there? Is Riley Tufte really going to play? Like, you're still like you're just one guy short right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head with Tufte. I don't mind him at all as an extra forward, depth call up, whatever. Definitely has size, definitely can protect the puck, but doesn't make a lot of, I would say, net positive plays out there. He's just kind of a guy, and that's not really what you're looking for out of any one of your forwards. Now, worth mentioning, Scott, Tyler Johnson is still kicking around. We didn't know this before our last recording because we were talking about the Florida game. He didn't travel with the team down to Florida and practice, but he was practicing with a gold jersey with Max Jones and Matt Poitras also wearing gold jerseys at pregame skate yesterday prior to the Canadiens game. So clearly he's sticking around and looking like a Heinen 2.0 situation, as we've discussed all along. Not set in stone, but it looks that way. And he would be another option in that middle six if they do sign him to a contract that I would, as we said last episode, put before a Tufte. So I'll get your thoughts on Johnson and then maybe a few more comments on the middle six after you go.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because, yeah, clearly like there is a mutual interest. If not, either they would have already cut ties and said, "Hey, thanks for giving it your all, but we don't have space for you. Feel free to go look at other opportunities." Or if he wasn't in, like if he didn't want to go along with this and be patient, he would just go look for other opportunities himself. So there is clearly mutual interest, but I still wonder like exactly how this kind of shakes out, because maybe 5 or 6 days ago I would have said, okay, Tufte, you waive once Poitras's healthy, and then Koepke gets waived whenever you decide to sign Tyler Johnson. Except now, like Poitras was, so I guess those gold jerseys weren't no contact because Montgomery, after morning skate, said Poitras was out of no contact for the first time, and he was one of the guys in yellow. So I guess that's not what that meant. So it seems like he's fairly close to returning if he's now practicing full contact. So it's like, okay, I still think Poitras for Tufte is the move there. But now I'm like, you can't waive Cole Koepke. Like, you can't send him down without waivers. The way he's playing, I could easily see someone putting in a claim. So you're going to keep him around. So, like, that's 13 forwards. You're up against it cap-wise. I don't see the clear path cap-wise to signing Tyler Johnson. So I don't know exactly what their plan is. Like, are you waiting for injury? Are you waiting for someone to struggle? Maybe Bridger was ahead of the curve saying Max Jones doesn't even have a secure roster spot. Like, I wouldn't have thought that, but maybe something like that's in play. Like, these 10 things tend to sort themselves out somehow, but I just don't see how at this very moment.
Yeah, he strikes me as somebody that they would like to have around in case of a middle six injury, like you're seeing with Matt Poitras, and it ends up being more long term. Like, let's say Matt Poitras was on the shelf for 2 months. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
okay, well, Tyler Johnson can go in and play third line center because we know he's done that before. So yeah, it will shake itself out. Now you talked about the second line, Scott, with Coyle, Marchand, and Geeky, and yeah, you were bang on with your assessment. I think Coyle's had opportunities. He just has to, get a couple and more, and he'll probably start feeling good about his game as well. But with Morgan Geeky, he definitely seems to have more mm, offensive creativity than Trent Frederick, as it pertains to like just putting Marchand or Coyle in a scoring opportunity or himself in one. But the rest of the ice, do you think that maybe Trent Frederick should get a look on that line and put Geeky at center on the third line until Potter's back, just to kind of give him a look? Because I don't know if the Trent Frederick experiment at center is going all too well. And we know Geeky can play third line center. He also played center last year with Pasternak and Zach in the playoffs. So is that a look that they could do, or are they just waiting until Potter comes back and put him there and see what happens?
Yeah, it's interesting because I kind of, as far as Geeky or Frederick at third line center, I kind of feel like they would both kind of be in the same situation where it's like, well, they'd probably look better if they had more support, right? Like if they Brazo, I think is fine as a third line winger, like not too worried about that. But I start to get a little worried when he has to be the clear second best player on the line. Like I still feel like he's at a stage of his career where he's more complementary piece on a line like that, ideally. So then if you're kind of putting them with either one of them, if you're putting them with two wings that are just more complementary and maybe not really going to drive play as much, I don't really think it's going to work great no matter who's there. So that decision really should come down to who's better with Marchand and Coyle and what gives you a better look there. And
Mm-hmm.
then like sort out the third line from there. So far it's only been Geeky with Marchand and Coyle through 2 games. Again, I think there's been moments where, like you said, you see some offensive creativity and you're like, okay, I can see how he helps create on that line. But it's been 2 pretty quiet games overall for that line. So, I don't like I'm not pulling the plug on Morgan Geeky as a potential second line fit, even if he's not the long term solution. But I do wonder if he tried Trent Frederick there at some point. He has chemistry with Coyle, and he just plays a more direct style. Like your chances of scoring some greasy goals, I think, go up if Frederick's there.
Yeah, and that last point, or both of those last points, is where I was going, which is the chemistry with Coyle. And I know, because you can sit here and say, well, Frederick and Coyle and Taylor Hall were a great third line, one of the best in the league that year. And the devil's advocate response to me could be, uh, well, okay, you just said that was a great third line. That's not a second line. But what I would argue is Charlie Coyle's stock has gone up since then. He's had a career year offensively since then, and a full season as a top 6 forward with Boston in particular. And Trent Frederick's stock has gone up since then. He's not the same player he was either. So would it be a bona fide second line? Probably not. No. But they're not going to have that, I don't think, until they get some outside help at the deadline, hopefully. And the how they acquire that is a conversation for a different day, but they would find a way. But as far as like making it work until then, I just think, look, I'm not jumping at the bit to end the Morgan Geeky experiment in game 3, but I wouldn't, if it's another quiet game, then I wouldn't hesitate to give Freddie a look on that line, and whether Patra comes back or not. Like Geeky, Patra, Brazo could be a solid third line too. So yeah, they have options.
Can,
So we'll see.
can I bring up one other thing? So I know this would have been complicated, waiver wise and whatever, but and again, he didn't earn a spot on the team, but you've now gone your first 2 games, as we've said, trying a still recovering Max Jones and a fringe fourth liner in Riley Tufte in top 9 roles. Wouldn't this kind of have been the perfect chance to try Fabian Lysell or Georgi Merkulov for that matter? But like, give them a couple games early in the season. Again, neither one of them won a job. They didn't go above and beyond and force the Bruins to keep them around. So, all right, shame on them. Like, that's on them. But I don't know. I mean, we're trying Riley Tufte on the third line instead of like one of your young skilled prospects. Again, just for a couple regular season games until Padres ready.
Yeah, it's a good point, Scott. You see a lot of that online last night as well. And I guess what I would say to that is if I'm the Bruins, what they're probably thinking is let's have them go down to Providence and get those good habits back into their game for a few weeks or a month or so, whatever. And at the same time, let's see if we know how important a good start is, and maybe it's not the time to be experimenting. So maybe let the Bruins get off to a respectable start in the standings, allow Lysell to get those good habits back, because a lot of people say, maybe himself included, he might be a slow starter. So maybe those habits just aren't there right now, and they just want them to get built in over the course of a few weeks or a month. Or they're not intending to bring him up at all, and he's being buried down in Providence, and that's all you'll see of him is training camp.
Yeah, and like I'm not banging the door down like some people online. Like I'm not that worked up over it, but it's just a little odd. And I guess that what I would say is I would hope, a month or two from now, if you're in a similar situation where, say it's Potter out and Johnson's not around or some other top 9 forwards out, like Tufte has probably been waived and sent down by that point. I would hope maybe they'd be a little more willing next time around to give one of those guys a shot. And again, I know that they have to earn it. They have to play well. They have to do their part to make it happen. But it does feels a little bit like a missed opportunity for me.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I don't disagree, Scott. And I think I would like to see the same thing. I also feel like jumping back to training camp, I know they got those 2 games at the end, or at least Lysell did. I just feel like at that point, the message was kind of sent, which is like, you're not making the team. We sent you down. I think the Bruins they said there was a plan all along. I think they may have had a little bit of PR backlash from all the fans. And not that the Bruins run their organization based off of fan feedback, but I think there are times where they just try to say, well, it's not that big a deal. Let's just shut people up. Let's not so much shut up the fans. Let's shut up the media that's going to keep asking us about this.
Right. Like that. We touched on it a little at the time, but like Don Sweeney at that press conference the day after sending them down, when he was like, it's not what all you are writing. Like, they might be back. That's
Right.
like, well, what do you expect us to write? Like, you announced cuts with no context. Like,
Exactly.
anyways.
Yeah. So I feel like when they got sent down, if I'm Lysell or Merkulov, I'm reading between the lines that it's kind of a bullshit call up again. But again, you can't look at it that way. If you're the player, you have to
Right.
see through that and play through that. But yeah, I think if he has the raw speed that the Bruins are looking for, and the playmaking ability. He has to get everything else situated, obviously, including consistency and good habits everywhere else. So at some point, Scott, if I would like to see him up again as well, just as a test. I want to see him tested and see how he does. And unfortunately, every time I've wanted to see him tested in the past, outside of a 1 week stretch this past camp, he has kind of disappointed. But so Scott, I want to move along to the power play, because last night the Charlie McAvoy I thought he was a beast, and I think that that's the way he's going to have to play, that shot first mentality and that confident decision making that he exemplified last night, both 5-on-5 and on the power play. That's what Boston needs from him, especially on the power play. But they need him to play like that more nights than not this year. And if he does, I think he'll reach that 60-point plateau that's eluded him to this point in his career. But I want to bring up him in the power play specifically, Scott, because yesterday at practice, the power play one did not look good. You saw Jim Montgomery talking to the players, basically saying like, figure this shit out. He was detailing what they need to do, but that was essentially the gist of it. The very next rep, again, just nothing, not even a shot on goal. And then you see, if you're really watching, Pasternak and McAvoy were kind of chirping each other as brothers do, right? Not a big deal, but they were just frustrated. And then Marchand read the situation and he came over and talked to them. And then the rest of the power play unit came over and talked to each other. So you could just tell that like they're getting used to each other. They're frustrated. I think some of it stems from last year. But for those who haven't attended a Bruins practice to see kind of how they do their power play on game days, they'll put power play 2 down one end, power play 1 down the other, and they'll blow a whistle. They'll work in zone until the puck gets cleared, and then the other end goes. So there's plenty of time for the units to talk between reps. And I thought that last night's success in the power play hopefully will bode well for everybody's mentality.
Yeah, and it was funny watching that the power play part of morning skate that you're referencing, because the PP2, which has Hampus Lindholm sliding in because Mason Lohr has a healthy scratch, um, is just like bombing away from all over. And it looks good. And they're like recovering rebounds and it's just moving, 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 shoot, move, shoot, move, shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, damn, that looks good. And then you see like PP1 go and it's like move, hold, look, pass broken up, cleared. Like, and you're like, why can't they just do what that other group's doing? And
Right.
like eventually they got a couple reps where it did kind of look a little more like that. But like clearly the emphasis was on especially the quarterback, shoot. Like get it, shoot, put it to the net. And it's funny, like then you get into the game and first power play, Hampus Lindholm, like within, I don't know what, 10 seconds of stepping on the ice, just steps into its shot. Not the hardest one timer in the world, just good solid slap shot from the point, and it goes in through a screen. As we said, gets called back because Brezzo did make a little bit of contact. But it's like, hey, that's exactly how that looked in practice this morning. And yeah, it finally, by game time, after all those chats that group was having, clicked for PP1 as well. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that should build, where it's like now McAvoy sees the reward of him shooting and being ready to shoot. Like that should give him confidence to keep doing it.
Yeah, it was funny watching the game last night. Uh, you would have no idea based on the game that they were kind of, again, in a brotherly way at each other's throats during morning skate. Like Pasternak, like when power play 2 was down the other end, like Pasternak and McAvoy were like talking to each other from like probably 30 feet apart, just like whipping like hard passes back and forth to each other. Like you started. Like it was a little chippy. Again, not in a controversial way. Just it's they're competitive and they want the best out of each other. But you would have had no idea that it was hot garbage in morning skate. So clearly something clicked. And yeah, it's not just the fact that he gets the shot off. It's that, yeah, he gets his feet moving right away. He's straddling the blue line with those powerful strides of his and crossovers. And yeah, shot first mentality is massive. And I think sometimes with really talented players and individuals, they think the game so well and so many different possibilities that they just psych themselves out and they stop going off of instinct. And what you saw last night during the game was just going off of instinct. And again, I think Elias Lindholm mentioned it after the game, or maybe was it Marchand? Somebody was saying after the game how they haven't had any real practice time together during camp before that Florida game, and they didn't. They had very very little reps together. Lindholm was out a lot of the camp and different things. So yeah, chemistry goes a long way, and chemistry happens through time and through reps.
Yeah, and tying back to my opening shift too, like Elias Lindholm in that bumper spot, I just really like the way he moves and the way he just constantly gives everyone else an outlet. He had just like a small little play, but he had a play last night where McAvoy has the puck at the point and there starts to penalty kill starts to close in on him and pressure him. Lindholm pops out from the bumper towards like almost like within 10 feet of McAvoy, like almost two of them at the point, and just gives McAvoy a short little pass. And then instead of curling towards the middle, which I think is what the kill was expecting, he curls out towards the boards and now all of a sudden has like all the space in the world to make something happen. And I think he ended up making a pass towards the middle that like kind of bounced around and like it didn't lead to a great scoring chance, but it was just like that little movement to A, give McAvoy an outlet, and then B, in like one quick little curl, create a ton of space. And potentially make something happen. Since we're starting to run low on time, I do want to talk about the defense, which was the one big negative from this game. Still, it's not like they're giving up a ton of shots, right? Like Montreal had 24 shots. It's not like they're getting bombarded, but it's just these breakdowns in the front of the net. The Canadiens' first goal, it's a power play goal. So Carlos trapped in, a little bit of a 2-on-1 down low. But nonetheless, the pass from Armia goes right through his legs to Gallagher on the back door. And it's like, and Carlo knows he's killed enough penalties in his life. He's a really good penalty killer. It's like, you got to either take away the pass or the stick of the guy on the receiving end. Like you can't just have the pass go through you like that. You can't have nothing tied up. The second Canadiens goal I mentioned, like initially I thought it was maybe a miscommunication between Geeky and Hampus Lindholm. And then I watched it back and Hampus Lindholm actually had a body on his guy in front of the net. So I think Caulfield was probably supposed to be Geeky's responsibility. But again, it's like another in zone breakdown. The third goal, they lose the face-off. Tufte doesn't get out to the point in time, so the defenseman's able to get the shot off. Both defensemen have sagged off towards the net, and Josh Anderson is just all alone in the slot for a tip. And it's just like, Montgomery said after the game, like, 2 goals came off defensive zone draws where our not just losing the face-off, because that's going to happen, obviously. Like, by and large, you come out 50-50 on face-offs when it's all said and done. But the coverage off those lost face-offs wasn't good enough. They had a couple bad icings that Montgomery highlighted. Like, he said 2 of them led to goals, 2 led to them then taking penalties to put Montreal on the power play. So, yeah, like that, the offense, I think you feel a lot better about from game 1 to game 2. Defense, still quite a bit of work to do there.
Right. And obviously they switched up the pairs, Scott, and you mentioned Lohrei was a healthy scratch. So the Zadorov-McAvoy pairing, that was their first regular season game together. Obviously, Lindholm and Carlo, they've worked together in the past. I'm going to chalk some of this stuff up to, early season kinks. And then Wotherspoon and Peak, we saw together at times last year, and definitely were a pretty good third pair for the Bruins. But obviously, Lohrei needs to be in there somewhere. So maybe it's just matchup dependent. But what did you make of the pairs they went to in game 2 in general, outside of the hiccups you were referencing? And those are also team hiccups too.
Yeah, so I actually kind of liked them overall. I thought Zadorov and McAvoy looked really good together. I mean, like we've touched on how good McAvoy was. I think this was the kind of McAvoy game where he was so good that I probably could have been his partner and it would have looked okay. Like, he was just dominant out there at both ends, I thought. But I did think Zadorov had a pretty good game as well next to him. Lindholm Carlo, we've seen that a ton, so that's always going to be a pretty safe option that you can go to. And then Wotherspoon Peak, I thought was solid for the like honestly kind of pretty uneventful actually if I'm being honest. Like, you know, they weren't really super involved at either end, which hey, as long as they're not, you know, making mistakes defensively, like good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I do think ultimately like maybe some of it's matchup dependent, but you put Lori there and now you at least have, you know, some offensive threat on that third pairing. But again, depends on the matchup. And I did think Lori had a tough opener again among a lot of people, but I didn't mind him sitting at all. Like Montgomery said this because he wants to get everyone involved, which I'm sure there is some of that, but I also think there was a message to those two guys in particular, Lori and Jones. Like, yeah, you know, they both struggled. We all saw it, so that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. Um, but yeah, like I think you probably stick with Zadorov, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo for another game, and then your decision is whether Wotherspoon gets another game or you go back to putting Lori in.
Well, and that's the top four that everybody kind of penciled in the off season and during train. It's the line. It's the pairings they went with for the majority of training camp when they had the full team together was Zadorov, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo. Then I think it was Lori and Peak, and then you get to the regular season, and they kind of throw the curveball in, and it's okay. Now it's McAvoy, Lindholm, and Zadorov, and Peak, Lori, and Carlo, and we just hadn't really seen that in camp. And then yesterday was different pairs as well. So I guess we're yet to see an NHL regular season game with Zadorov, McAvoy, Carlo Lindholm, Lori, Peak, which is what everybody kind of penciled. But there's plenty of time for that. I'm sure we will get that in a bunch of different combinations. So yeah.
Speaking of things we want to see,
Oh.
Hey,
Hey,
look who it is.
it's me. I'm here. I'm alive. Yeah, I didn't realize that you guys had already been recording for 40 minutes. That's my bad. Guys, how
team
are
game.
you? I missed your, you know, all of your takes so far. I don't know if you want my opinion on anything now. It's very late.
Well, you know what? Why don't we just do that? Welcome into episode 355 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget, what's your opening take?
Oh, my opening shift, guys. All right. Much better game than game one. Okay.
Yes.
Mark Haslick. Great game for him. And and guys, Swayman's first game, obviously. I'm sure you've talked about all of this already.
No,
Actually,
this
no.
is perfect. Swayman was going to be last. So
We have not gotten to Swayman yet.
yeah, so if you want to kick that off.
All right. So we talked to him after the game too. Obviously, 6'4". That's still a lot of goals to give up. He wasn't 100% happy with his performance, and it was his first game after missing the entire training camp. And obviously, he had a few days to practice with the team since he signed on Sunday. But you know, maybe still a little bit rusty. However, he did make a few really nice saves, and I didn't think he looked like he hadn't played in that long. So I don't know if you guys thought that too. Maybe there was one goal he could have had back. I think it was a point shot that went in, but I thought he looked good for not having played for quite a bit. And I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, even that point shot though, that was tipped like in the slot right on front of him. I thought maybe if there was anyone he could have done better on, it might have been Caulfield's goal because again, it's a guy alone on the doorstep, so like not his fault. But Caulfield actually did get two whacks at that because I think he put the first one off the post. And Swayman still wasn't like all the ways to the post for the second one. So like if you really wanted to nitpick, like maybe he didn't get across to a guy who was wide open on the doorstep. But again, that guy shouldn't have been open in the first place. So
yeah, they had a lot of missed coverages, especially like backdoor. I think I saw Connor Ryan tweet out a meme about the Bruins locking down the back end, and it was like a Cheeto as a lock in the door. So yeah, the backdoor passes were happening, and it's really hard to move post to post like that. Does he make that save sometimes? Yes, but a lot of times he didn't have the best chance because the defense just didn't stop the pass that that shouldn't have been able to get there in the first place.
Well, this is the beauty of it, though, guys, is that their defense. What's been the phrase this whole time? They're better built for the postseason, for the playoffs. So as long as they get this shit together by April, which I fully believe that they will, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna look at every blemish and blimp until then as a learning experience for them, because I think that when it comes down to when it matters most, I do think they'll hunker down, and that Cheeto will become an actual key. But until then, there might be some growing pains.
Hold on. Did you say blimp or blip?
Well, I don't know. Whichever one's not going to get me in trouble here.
Like, I know you meant blip, but it sounded like blimp.
You know what's sad? You know what's sad? I think this might be the second time in skate pod history where I've said blimp and you actually caught on to it. We'll go with blip. You know what? No, screw it. I'm gonna stand by my. I'm gonna say blimp. It's a blimp.
You know, you don't see enough blimps anymore.
No, you don't. What was the thing? What was the thing above Songus with the hood thing? Was that a blimp?
Oh yeah, that was a blimp. Yeah,
That's
like
blimp.
A small one, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Was that there today?
No, that they used to always have it for Lock Monster
games. Yeah.
And it would like drop tickets and coupons and whatever.
Only the OGs know.
Like, I missed that. I work at Songus a lot, but I've never seen this.
Oh, this definitely strikes me as like a 2005 thing. I don't know if they do it anymore, but
no, I don't think so.
Now I completely forget
the defense.
Whatever point I was gonna make, I don't remember.
Because he had a really important blimp point to make.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Bridget, the Swayman stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, let's be real. It was his first preseason game. It was a preseason game for him, right? First game action since Game 6 last year. So I think he was by and large fine. Yeah, every goal kind of had a reason behind it, except for maybe the Caulfield one. But again, that was kind of blown coverage, like we talked about. So
yeah, and the Bruins played better than Montreal. Like they deserved to win that game. It wasn't like they squeaked it out because. And Primo let in a few that weren't great. But like,
yes,
I think Swayman won the goalie battle still. And I think the Bruins were the better team. So especially that fourth line, every time Montreal would score, the fourth line would come back out and swing momentum. They had 2 goals right after Montreal goals within like, I don't know, if like 90 seconds or whatever after 2 of their goals. And that was big. I mean, and those were guys that weren't on the team last year besides Beecher. That Kastelik and Koepke, those guys came in and they'd made an impact in last night's game.
And even now that I think about it, even they also scored right after a Boston goal, right? It's like a double whammy. So their timing on all of their goals came after somebody scored, which is, like I think the Koepke goal I think was after the Pasternak one, right? Towards the end of the second period. So that kind of iced the game.
Less than a minute later.
Well, it almost iced the game, and then the third period happened.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing. We talk about, we were talking about defensive breakdowns, but it was also taking their foot off the gas in that third period. Like that's another thing that, again, I think you see a lot of all over the league early in the season. But again, like something this team's gonna have to learn and grow and get better at it was an issue at times last year for sure, is slamming the door shut, closing out games. And eventually they got there last night. Right? Montreal never tied it up. They didn't get that close, but they did get to 5-4. And that shouldn't have happened. And not against the Montreal team that, unless they really exceed expectations, we don't think is going to be an offensive juggernaut. If you do that against the Panthers, a team is just always going to push and has the offense, like you understand it a little more. Ideally, as the season goes on, a 3-goal lead going into the third period against the Canadiens is never in doubt. Like you close that out with ease and cruise to, not cruise to the finish line. That's kind of part of the problem, but you know what I mean? Like make sure that game's never in doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
that's half the fans had left. at that
Oh,
point. It was
really?
like, oh, now it's a close game. Like I feel like I looked into the crowd when the Bruins
Did it
were
sound
up.
quiet to you guys in there last night for home opener? On
Yeah,
TV, it kind of sounded quiet.
I think so. I think that when they introduced all the players, there was like no juice.
Yeah, the
Normally, like
juice.
there's
I mean,
some
Swayman right away. You got a bit of a pop, but even that, it was
less than I
because
would have.
because those intros were like 6:55. Like the building was maybe 2/3, 3/4 full. Like I don't know if like the message didn't get out to fans that was starting kind of early, but the stands were not even close to full yet. Like you could almost see people like kind of pouring into their seats as it was going, like as they realized that
Yeah,
hey,
because they're
like
like, oh, they're doing something.
something's happening.
Hmm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And scurrying in with their beer. And yeah, there was only a few guys that really got like noticeable like cheers. Like because I mean they cheered for everyone, but then you expect there to be like, fan favorites that are going. Funny enough, one of them was Matt Patra. Like that
Hmm.
one was louder. And then it was like then you get to the captains at the end, McAvoy, Pasta, Marchand, and those are loud. But in the middle, I'm like, really, we're not gonna give it up for Charlie Coyle? Like, what are we doing
Matt,
here?
Matt Patra, guys, he is. How do you not love this kid?
I know.
He has the most. He's adorable. Let's call it the way it is. The kid's adorable. He looks like he's in like the opening credits of Full House when they showed him on TV last night. He's like looks all like shy and smiling. It's like this
He
kid's
is.
he just doesn't have a bad bone in his body. But
That's why he's likable, and that's why I've started to see Pacha jerseys like popping up everywhere.
Which by the way, like if you're holding off on that purchase, he's I heard someone ask him this preseason. He said he's sticking with 51. He's committed to it.
Oh,
So
nice.
Yeah.
So Saturday, the Bruins are playing the Kings at 1 o'clock, and this is a game that I'm interested to see if the habits that the Bruins created against the Canadians, the good habits at least, right? Because Scott mentioned letting the foot off the gas and some defensive mishaps, but I want to see the Bruins impose their will like they did against the Canadians, but against the Kings because the Kings are a much different type of team. They're a lot closer to the Florida Panthers as far as caliber of opponent. They're going to play you hard. They're good defensively. They're going to check well. Montreal, they have some exciting young players, but they're not. That's the Bruins kind of had. You could see last night. It wasn't just the Bruins playing well. You could see how much more space the Bruins had to work with because just coverage and everything. So the Kings will be closer to what you see out of a Florida team when it pertains to the details. And so let's see if they can do that again against a better team.
Yeah, and I also thought Montreal's penalty kill was so passive that they were letting the Bruins move the puck around a lot, and that's part of the system is not overreacting, overextending. It's keeping it compact. But I think that the way Montreal did it, it was way too passive. Like passes were going wherever, and it was giving the Bruins offense on the power play a lot of space to make plays, and for that reason, it looked like a successful power play. But I just don't know if it's going to look that good against a team that plays more aggressive penalty kill. They were having all the time in the world to shoot from the point, and we saw them do that. They even had a few times where they were able to get that slot pass through and move the puck with ease. I don't think that's going to happen every night because Montreal, and I watch like so many different penalty kills because I do so many college hockey games. That was more passive than I've seen like most penalty kills play.
That's a good observation, Bridget. That's exactly right. I was thinking that as well last night watching because I was like, yeah, the Bruins definitely struggle historically when the flanks are rushed and when they're forced into making decisions. So yeah, last night kind of seemed like the perfect penalty kill to go against to try to get your touches and get your confidence. But is that sustainably what you're going to see most nights? I don't think so. You're right about that.
even with that noted, one thing I did really like that the Bruins power play did was Pasternak in particular was moving all around. Like he was popping up at center point, he's popping up on the right side. He was like almost even in the bumper at times. Like again, teams know he wants to rip one-timers from the left on. So the number one thing they're going to focus on taking away is that. So how else are you getting looks for? Pastrnak, I thought, again, regardless of how passive the PK was, him just moving around and popping up in other areas is a good sign. Like, I think that needs to continue.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Scott, I've been asking myself this in recent months watching the Bruins dating back to last year. If he's more, this might sound crazy, but I have asked myself if Pastrnak is more dangerous on his strong side, because it allows him to kind of come up and curl and gain some space and separation, and he can let go of that wrist shot, that snapshot, or he could use his playmaking ability because he's as good of a passer as he is a scorer. And find that guy in the slot or back door. So it just, when you're open up for the one timer, your options are one time it, or slap pass, or maybe to the bumper. But when you're on your forehand side, you have more mobility and you have more options. You can see more of the ice too. So it's definitely good that he does that more often than not to kind of switch things up.
He also he almost had it. He would have had a goal if he had just kept control of the puck. There was one sequence where they had great movement. Ended up with him, and he did that where he takes like the step. He doesn't shoot right away. He takes a step inside, gets the defender leaning. He had Primo like completely off foot and just lost control of the puck. Like,
yeah, the puck just
he would have had like a 4x4 area to his glove side to hit, and I think almost certainly would have scored if it hadn't just slipped away.
The crowd reacted like they knew it was gonna be a goal, and then the second they notice it's not like sticking on his stick, and they're just like, it was one of those ones where I was like, oh, that's wild. And like Beecher too, Beecher being offsides for the empty net. He was way up there by himself, and he just was barely offside, and at least it looked like that in real speed. So people were like thinking he's going to get a breakaway and he's going to put in an empty netter, and then the whistle blows and everybody's all disappointed. But
all right, Bridget, Scott, I think we'll probably wrap it up here due to timing. But thank you all for listening. Bridget, thanks for joining us. And and we're truly happy that you jumped on. I was pumped to see that.
What's the punishment for being late? What's the skate pod punishment?
Hey, guys, my alarm was supposed to be set for 7, and I woke up like 2 minutes shy of my 10 a.m. alarm. So yeah, I don't know. I'll do laps. I don't know.
The punishment was less when I thought you were at your PT appointment. So
yeah, I wasn't. I missed my PT appointment.
We'll have to review the tape. Look at the intent, and we'll get back to you on that.
My day is already off to a real hot start, and I have a broadcast tonight. My broadcast partner is sick and isn't coming. So yeah, off to a hot start today.
Is the knee in good enough shape to skate suicides?
Probably not. I'm gonna go with no. Somebody bumped me in the scrum last night. I didn't use my crutches or my brace. Somebody bumped me in the scrum, and I almost went down.
I think it was Scott because of the Scott's pop stickers.
Yeah, those were great. And the puck. Did you find a place for the puck?
Not yet. No.
Mine's back here. You can't see it right now, but mine's back here.
All right.
Scott's got to go.
I really do have to run though to get the press.
Okay,
Thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.